At 9:23 in the morning on May 12th, the radar operator aboard USS John S. McCain called out 10 contacts, 4 from the north, 6 from the west. 2 different national signatures, closing fast, from 2 different bearings, on coordinated intercept vectors that converged on a single point. The point where the McCain was. 320 Americans, 1 guided missile destroyer, 10 enemy warships from 2 separate nations, moving together as a single coordinated force. The last time 2 nations had combined military operations against the USS Navy was 1950. Commander Marcus Bell had 21 years in the Navy. He had his daughter's photograph in his uniform pocket. He looked at the tactical display and understood immediately what he was seeing, because Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park had already said it out loud. "Sir, this is not a coincidence. These are synchronized approach vectors. They are designed for encirclement. We are being trapped." 72 hours before that morning, inside the Zongnanhai government complex in Beijing, General Wei Lin of the Chinese Central Military Commission sat across from Marshal Pak Jong-chun of the North Korean delegation at the first coordinated military planning meeting between Beijing and Pyongyang in 72 years. The logic they presented to their combined planning staff was straightforward. American freedom of navigation patrols transit what China claims and threaten what North Korea protects, and they do it every week without consequence, because American naval doctrine is built around single threat encounters. No script exists for a 2-nation coordinated naval engagement. No American captain has a playbook for it. No American admiral has precedent for it. The gap between what American doctrine assumes and what 2 nations operating together can create, that gap is the target. Pak committed 4 destroyers from the north. Wei committed 6 from the west. 10 total. Encircle the McCain during a routine patrol. Demand surrender. A captain with no diplomatic option either surrenders and creates the humiliation, or fights and starts a war. Both outcomes serve the alliance. And the USS Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group, 240 miles southwest, needs 40 minutes to respond. By the time Reagan launches aircraft and crosses the distance, the result is already determined. The calculation was precise, methodical, and built on intelligence they believed was current. The Reagan was 240 miles southwest. Response time, 40 minutes. What Beijing and Pyongyang did not know was that Pacific Command's intelligence officer, Lieutenant Commander David Chen, had flagged unusual encrypted diplomatic traffic between Beijing and Pyongyang 96 hours earlier, the first direct military communication between the 2 governments since the 1951 armistice. On Chen's recommendation, the Reagan had repositioned 80 miles north of its stated position 3 days before the engagement. Silently, without announcement. The Reagan was not 240 miles southwest. It was 140 miles southwest. Response time was not 40 minutes. It was 23 minutes. 2 nations had built their entire operation around a number that was wrong. At 9:21 a.m., Petty Officer First Class Diana Hayes flagged the first anomaly. 4 contacts from the north. High speed. Closing. Bell recognized the signature. Neon-class frigates. North Korean. 30 seconds later, 6 more contacts from the west. Type 052D Chinese destroyers. Bell transmitted to 7th Fleet before Park finished her assessment. Vice Admiral Marcus Thompson answered before Bell finished his transmission. Thompson had read Chen's brief. He had moved the Reagan north on Chen's recommendation.
He had been waiting for this. Commander Bell, USS Ronald Reagan is 140 miles southwest. Aircraft response time is 23 minutes, not 40. Reagan is spinning up F-35Cs and FA-18s now. Apache Squadron from Kadena is airborne in 9 minutes. USS Mississippi attack submarine is running silent 12 miles south of your position and has been tracking everything. You have 3 layers of American response inbound. You hold the line until they arrive. 320 sailors moved simultaneously. Phalanx CIWS systems powered up. 82 VLS missile cells armed. The 5-inch deck gun rotated toward the closest bearing. Sonar pinging active, confirming the Mississippi's position to the south. Everyone aboard the McCain understood what the next 23 minutes meant. At 9:26 a.m., the Chinese destroyer Hefei opened fire first. 4 Ye-18 anti-ship missiles, sea-skimming, tracking the McCain. The Aegis system detected the launch within seconds. Lieutenant Marcus Cooper engaged automatically. SM-2 interceptors in pairs against each incoming weapon. 4 missiles, 4 intercepts, 0 impacts. The McCain was unhurt. The North Korean destroyers used the missile launch as a distraction. While the Aegis was processing the Chinese salvo, 2 NK destroyers closed range and fired their naval gun batteries directly at the McCain's bridge area. The first shells hit at 9:26 a.m. and 40 seconds. Petty Officer First Class Diana Hayes, 24 years old, on her first combat deployment, died instantly when the bridge wing took a direct hit. Master Chief Petty Officer James Walsh, 28 years in the Navy, grandfather of 2, was killed pushing 2 younger sailors out of the blast zone. Lieutenant Junior Grade Robert Martinez, 26 years old, married 8 months, died at the deck gun position when shrapnel struck without warning. 3 American sailors killed in the first 90 seconds. Bell's voice did not change. All hands casualty report. Continue engagement. Park was bleeding from a shrapnel wound to her forehead. She refused medical attention. Captain, bridge wing is damaged. Primary weapons still operational. Aegis still tracking. We can still fight. Bell transmitted to the Mississippi. Execute Phase 2. Engage the Chinese formation. Engage the North Korean formation. Everything in the encirclement. 12 miles south, the USS Mississippi executed. 24 Tomahawk cruise missiles launched in a coordinated salvo, 2 to 3 per target across the 10-ship formation simultaneously. 4 Mark 48 heavyweight torpedoes tracked enemy destroyer propulsion signatures. The combined Chinese and North Korean point defense systems engaged incoming Tomahawks, multiple intercepts, but more getting through. The NK destroyer Chola took a direct Tomahawk hit to the forward magazine, catastrophic secondary explosion, sinking within 4 minutes. The Chinese destroyer Hefei was struck by 2 Tomahawks, engine room destroyed, dead in the water. The NK destroyer Kangwon took a Mark 48 torpedo amidships, keel broken, sinking rapidly. 7 enemy ships were still fighting. The Chinese flagship, Type 055 destroyer Nanchang, launched a coordinated HQ-9 surface-to-air missile salvo at the McCain, 12 missiles simultaneously. Park coordinated intercepts. SM-2 launches every 6 seconds. 8 HQ-9's intercepts, 4 got through. 3 impacted the McCain's port side amidships. Fire spreading toward the magazine. The 4th detonated on a proximity fuse above the stern, shrapnel across the rear antenna arrays.
The McCain went partially radar blind for 45 seconds. 8 more American sailors were hit in that proximity detonation. 5 killed instantly. Chief Petty Officer Robert Diaz, Lieutenant David Kim, Petty Officer Maria Santos, Petty Officer First Class James Park, Lance Corporal Lisa Walker of the Marine Detachment. 3 critically wounded. 11 American sailors dead. The McCain was listing, damaged, still fighting. At 9:46 a.m., 23 minutes after the first contact, the USS Ronald Reagan arrived. Captain Sarah Chen led 16 F-35C Lightning II and 12 FA-18 Super Hornets into the engagement from beyond visual range. 64 anti-ship weapons from the air wing against the 7 surviving enemy destroyers, simultaneous with Mississippi's remaining torpedo inventory and the McCain's Aegis system still processing intercepts. Then Beijing and Pyongyang's second wave arrived, 3 additional North Korean frigates and 2 Chinese Type 056 corvettes. The reinforcement package held back for the late phase of the engagement. Reagan's air wing split. F-35Cs handled the original encirclement force. FA-18s redirected to the reinforcements. Apache helicopters from Kadena arrived at sea level with Hellfire missiles. Within 9 minutes of the Reagan's arrival, all 10 original encirclement destroyers were destroyed or sinking, all 5 reinforcement vessels destroyed. Bell transmitted to Thompson, Admiral, McCain damaged but intact, 309 American sailors alive, 11 KIA. McCain continues combat operations, 15 enemy vessels destroyed. Thompson authorized Phase 3 immediately. 48 Tomahawk cruise missiles from the Mississippi and the Reagan Strike Group launched simultaneously with 8 B-2 stealth bombers already airborne from Andersen Air Force Base in Guam. The targets were the 14 bases and command facilities that had supported the coordinated attack: North Korean Naval Headquarters at Wonsan, Chinese Eastern Theater Naval Command at Ningbo, IRGC Joint Coordination Facilities, submarine support bases, the personal command bunkers of the officers who planned the operation. All 14 struck within the same 60-second window. 47 minutes after the encirclement began, both nations' naval command infrastructure in the theater had been destroyed. 309 sailors came home, 11 did not. Diana Hayes died at her radar station, doing exactly the job she trained for. James Walsh died the way men who spend 28 years in the Navy die when it matters most, between the threat and the people behind them. Marcus Bell brought his ship home, with a photograph still in his pocket. The USS John S. McCain returned to port the following month, repaired and recommissioned. Here is what Beijing and Pyongyang's planners got wrong, and why it matters for every future calculation either government makes. Their entire operation depended on the Reagan being where they believed it was. One intelligence gap, a single repositioning decision made on the recommendation of a lieutenant commander who noticed unusual diplomatic traffic, turned 40 minutes into 23 and collapsed the entire strategic logic of the attack. Two nations, years of planning, the first coordinated military operation between them in 72 years, and it failed because one American intelligence officer read a pattern in communications traffic that no one else flagged.
The 11 sailors who died bought the 23 minutes that every other person aboard the McCain needed. So here is the question. Beijing and Pyongyang both know now that the Reagan was repositioned before the engagement began, that Pacific Command had intercepted their coordination communications and moved assets silently in response. That means the next time either government considers a coordination operation against a U.S. naval asset, they have to assume the Americans already know about it. Does that knowledge make them more cautious, or does it make them study harder, looking for the communications pattern that got them caught, and building the next coordination around a channel Pacific Command cannot read? That answer determines whether the Strait of Hormuz is the last place this happens or the first. Drop your read below. And if you want the next briefing before it reaches anyone else, stay close.